friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We've got some serious business to attend to, and we can't start rambling off here and going through the mind map, just bouncing all over the place unless the tubes are working. But are they working? I think they are. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we were already on Locals. I think we're on Twitter. That's great news. Let's get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about contempt. We have some serious contempt to talk about, and we have some condemnations, and we have some sentencings that we're going to get into. We're going to start the day off talking about the Oath Keepers leader, Stewart Rhodes, who was sentenced to 18 years in prison for something. We're still trying to understand exactly what it is. Conspiracy is the overall umbrella term, but it's very curious because Ray Epps is another former Oath Keeper who didn't get charged with anything and didn't get convicted of anything. And he was there, and by many people's accounts, he was a lot more involved in J6 and a lot more insurrectionary than Stewart Rhodes ever was. And so we'll go back and do a little trip down memory lane, just so we can articulate the double standard that has been evident throughout this entire ordeal. We'll also see what the story says. We are going to go through the sentencing hearing so we can see what some of Stewart Rhodes' arguments was that were put forward by his attorneys. And then we'll take a look at some of the reaction from people like Thomas Massey. We've got reaction from Julie Kelly. We've got Cernovich is in here. We've got a couple other people that we'll check in on. So a pretty horrific sentence, and not something that I guess is surprising. It is surprising it's happening in America, but as they said, this was the worst thing since the Civil War. Since the Civil War, they forgot about Pearl Harbor, they forgot about 9/11, Stewart Rhodes, and 4 hours at the Capitol that was a little bit riotous, 18 years. So we'll dig into all of that in the first segment. Then we're going to turn our attention over to Congress and see what the FBI is up to. We know one thing they're not doing is giving documents to Congress. James Comer says things are about to get hot there, and he really means it this time, I hope. Contempt of Congress is the term that they are throwing around, and in fact, Comer sent the letter over to Christopher Wray warning him, if you do not respond this time, we're going to hold you in contempt of Congress. And so he's pretty fired up about it. Evidently, there is a meeting scheduled now between James Comer and Christopher Wray. So we'll get updates on that from Jim Jordan and from James Comer, two men in Congress. We also have a lot of questions about this pipe bomber, this individual that the FBI still can't find. I mean, they gobbled up everybody's receipts from where they got hot dogs the day before. If you were even involved in the insurrection or not, they gobbled up your cell phone records. They've got tens of thousands of hours of surveillance footage. They've weaponized the entire DOJ and FBI to go find this guy. Oh, they can't find him. Very strange with these egg timer pipe bombs that were probably built at the J. Edgar Hoover building. Speaking of that, apparently they do have some details on the car that this guy was driving. And so we'll see if there's any more updates from them before we take a look at this letter that came out from Christopher Wray over to the director of the FBI saying, we want to know about this pipe bomber. You keep saying that America was almost insurrected. You're sentencing people like Stewart Rhodes to 18 years, who wasn't even there at the Capitol. And so where is the pipe bomber? Who knows? Another interesting story. Apparently, Department of Homeland Security spending tens of millions of dollars smearing Christians as Nazis and smearing a lot of different right-leaning organizations as being involved in nefarious activities. So we're going to go through this report. Biden is bragging that there are 100 things that his administration is doing to fight against misinfo and disinfo and all the things. And then the MRC actually created this report, and you can see the hierarchy. They talk about the pyramid of far-right radicalization. We're going to go through this report. You see that apparently just being a Republican or watching Fox News puts you at the base layer of right radicalization of far right. So this is neat. Yeah. And if you read Breitbart, or you're somebody who goes to InfoWars, yeah. Well, that means you're just one layer away from being a Nazi. So, okay. Well, we'll talk about that. And so, my friends, as you can see, Tom Forsyth says, Rob belongs right here at the top. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. That's a really nice compliment. I appreciate that a lot. All right. But so if you want to be a part of the program, you certainly can join us. We'd love it if you came over to our amazing community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where we congregate to do our member-only morning streams. We had a great one this morning. We talk about other things that we can't get to here, and it's a lot of fun, a little bit of a smaller group, and a lot more intimate. So come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, you can join up on YouTube, get same access to the Saturday shows, to the morning streams, and don't forget to grab the private Telegram group, because every day after this show ends here, we do stick around and have an after party. And before we get into all of this news, we have to get our vitamins in, don't we? Now, we'd all like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, but how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and for fad diets? You know what I'm talking about. We've all been there. We've all done that. And we know they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And who's got time to prepare that every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. And I mean it. Just go look at the website and see what's in there. You'll see. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com. Just open up a new tab or write this down, fieldofgreens.com. And when you go over there, use code Robert so you can save 15% at checkout. And let's not forget, my friends, the vegetables want to be eaten. And there's all sorts of really good stuff there. If you don't want greens, take a look at their lean product. Take a look at their calm product to help you slow things down. Lots of good stuff at fieldofgreens.com. Code Robert. And speaking of this, Spud says, are there any Field of Greens at the top of this pyramid? At the top of the insurrection pyramid? I don't think so. Field of Greens is not very insurrectionary, except it will insurrect the oxidants in your body. It will antioxidize those oxidants. So maybe it should be in there. I'm not sure. But okay, so let's get into the news of the day, because we've got a lot to get to. Leader of the Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes, sentenced to 18 years in prison because the government is throwing a hissy fit and prosecuting their political enemies. And this is a pretty serious deal because they're sentencing Stewart Rhodes at the same level as other terrorists, as other people who've done really horrendous things, not been involved in a riot that lasted several hours at the Capitol building that they have turned into years of political propaganda to go after their political enemies. And so if you're not familiar with the Oath Keepers, we've talked a lot about them here as we've covered all of January 6th, but I want to show you a little bit more about Stewart Rhodes and who this person is, who's been sentenced to 18 years in prison. In fact, 18 years is what a lot of terrorists get. You get murderers in many parts of this country who've killed other people who don't get 18 years. You get actors who shoot and kill women, accidentally or not, who don't serve any jail time at all. 18 years for Stewart Rhodes. Now, Stewart Rhodes is seen here. This was a photograph from many years ago. I think this photograph was taken in Arizona. And what's so interesting about this is Stewart Rhodes is standing next to this woman. I don't know who this woman is, what's going on here. It looks like it's an Oath Keepers event. But look who's here right next to him. Oh, look who that is. Ray Epps. Interesting. Do we know Ray Epps? Oh, yeah, we do. He's that person who showed up on the FBI's most wanted list. Remember this one? Right here. Ray Epps, photograph number 16, right outside the Capitol, right there. And this post is still online on their Twitter account. And Ray Epps was on the most wanted list, not just for being there, for violence at the Capitol. You know who was not violent at the Capitol? Stewart Rhodes. He was not even there, actually. So he was not on this list, okay? Not violent, nothing at all about it at all. But Ray Epps was. Ray Epps, you can see here, we have some more background on this. This is a post from an events calendar from an Oath Keepers meeting, and this is the actual post from the Oath Keepers meeting. This is where I got the photograph from. Stewart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers at Hometown Buffet back in Arizona. And Ray Epps is standing right next to the guy. So Ray Epps is a former Oath Keepers, but he has not been involved in any criminality, no criminal charges. Here's a close-up, and there's the source video where Ray Epps came from. And if you're unfamiliar with some of these videos, you know that Ray Epps did this. Okay, there's no video of Stewart Rhodes doing this. We haven't heard from him saying things like this the day before.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol.
I didn't hear Stewart Rhodes say that.
Tomorrow? I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
Well, let's not say it.
We need to go. I'll say it.
All right.
Say it, Ray.
We need to go in.
Shut the fuck up, Boomer.
Say it, Ray.
President is done speaking. We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word. All right. No, okay, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
Okay, so Ray Epps is seen all over the place. Here's the other video with him right when the first breach happens. I don't see Stewart Rhodes anywhere. Do you see Stewart Rhodes? Does anybody see Stewart Rhodes in here? No, that's not Stewart. No. None of those people are Stewart Rhodes. Don't see Stewart Rhodes over here. He didn't push that over. None of that was happening. Oh, that's not Stewart Rhodes either. So very curious. I don't see him anywhere in that video. I wonder if he's in any other videos that are percolating out there, like maybe this one. This was an event from Arizona with, of course, Stewart Rhodes leading and marching down with the Oath Keepers in a parade in Arizona. Now they're playing bagpipes there, and you'll see Stewart Rhodes is right there. Look at Stewart. What's he doing there? Oh, he's walking with the Oath Keepers. They're doing a bagpipes parade for one of the fallen. And look who is walking right next to old Stewart Rhodes. You see that right there? Oh, it's Ray Epps again. Oh, man, that is so weird. Now, of course, this was a massive conspiracy that Stewart Rhodes was involved in. That's why he's being convicted of these crimes, is because of his involvement in the Oath Keepers, his involvement in an insurrection with this group. But Ray Epps was also there the day before and the day of on the FBI's most wanted list. And here he is with Stewart Rhodes at another event right behind him, right there. There's old Ray. So certainly the FBI is aware of that. Appropriate for Stewart Rhodes' sentence today. Pause for a minute. All right, so Stewart Rhodes is there, Ray Epps right behind him. Longtime member of the Oath Keepers, was hanging out with them doing marches all over the place. But the day of the Capitol, he was there and no repercussions have come his way. So that's the background. Now, for some reason, Ray Epps has been immune this entire time. We know that he was on the most wanted, most violent list. He also went into the Capitol. He actually did go in. If you read his deposition, which we've done here, we read the whole thing on video. It's right here. We've talked about this multiple times. You have a short also. He went into the Capitol, and the idiots who were doing the deposition of him really tried to get him to not say that thing, but he did. And the way that even the transcript was conducted in the deposition was so poor, it's like they tried to cover the whole thing up. But read it. You can see it's clear as day. Did you go in? They asked. He said, yeah, I went in. I saw somebody was injured and then I was blah, blah, blah. And whatever. We can't see the video because they're not releasing the video. So he was requesting and demanding violence the day before, seen on multiple camera angles, being violent, throwing flags into other people and doing other things. FBI confirmed he was violent until they found out he was one of their own, went into the Capitol, but no criminal charges. In fact, got 60-minute puff pieces Instead, they're prosecuting people like Stewart Rhodes, who wasn't even in the Capitol or physically there on January 6th. Wonder why that is. Very curious. Now, here, this is some backstory on what happened over from the AP. They say 18 years. Now, they're telling us it's seditious conspiracy, which is one of the dumbest charges as we've seen here. It doesn't even hardly mean anything. Conspiracy is such a broad term that you can use it as an umbrella to envelop basically anything. And let's see what they've done here. Oath Keeper Stewart Rhodes, sentenced Thursday. Rhodes, age 58, first person that was convicted of seditious conspiracy, first to receive his punishment. And remember, we spent a lot of time on the Proud Boys case here, so they are going to be looking at very similar sentences here for all of their egregious misconduct, right? In a first for the January 6th case, the judge agreed with the DOJ that this should be punished as, quote, terrorism. Terrorism. They didn't even bring any weapons, which increases the recommended sentence under the guidelines. That decision could foreshadow lengthy sentences later down the road for people like Enrique Tarrio, who've also been convicted of the charge, rarely used charge. And so I want to go through the actual proceedings, courtesy of our friend Roger Parloff. And we're going to fast forward through a lot of it because a lot of it's very technical and very mechanical. You can read the full thread, but they're talking about the different levels in federal guidelines and bouncing around between the two of them. So we're going to fast forward through a lot of the government's position. We're going to start at tweet 106. And this is now Attorney Phil Linder, who is up speaking in front of the judge in the Oath Keepers sentencing, speaking on behalf of Stewart Rhodes. He says, Your Honor, before you conduct a sentence here on my client, I would like to explain the following. Your Honor, this court has sat through 3 jury trials. You've read all the pre-sentence reports, and you have a good grasp of evidence as you see it. There's no magic witnesses that I can bring to change your mind, and I want to be clear at the outset of this. I think what happened on January 6th was deplorable. However, the government wants you, Your Honor, to sentence my client, Stewart Rhodes, out of fear. Fear that he'll do it again. They want to make Rhodes the face of January 6th. That's why they want a 25-year sentence. Nothing has even come close to that. 25 years is what they were asking for. Nothing even comes close. He says, Your Honor, go back to the election in November. Let's rewind the clock. Rhodes is as upset back then as are millions of Americans. He's not alone. And Rhodes didn't plan events in November or December or January 6th. He didn't plan any of this stuff. He's a participant. They want to say Rhodes caused this, but Rhodes did not cause this. Now, the court and the public need to look at who caused this. It wasn't Stewart Rhodes. They can blame a lot of other people. They can say Trump did it. They can say Mayor Muriel Bowser did it by declining Trump's request to bring in the National Guard. She sent a letter on May 5th, don't you dare bring anybody into my city. Why didn't the Sergeant at Arms do more? Why does Christopher Stephen Sund, formerly Capitol Hill Police, why does he say that there were security concerns that were lacking? But it wasn't Rhodes. Maybe they should look at the FBI and their dozens, if not hundreds, of informants that were embedded. They stipulated in the Proud Boys trial that there were 8 government informants in the Proud Boys trial. Remember, there were only 5 Proud Boy defendants. The defense thought that there were many more than that, 50 plus. That's just scratching the surface. Not only FBI informants, but HSI, Homeland Security, and others. So it wasn't Rhodes, obviously. He was a participant. He didn't create all of that, Judge. He didn't start the Million MAGA March, the Jericho March, or the J6. If he'd been called away, J6 would still have happened. And so the government here wants to put a face on it. They want to put a face on this event. Put it on Trump. Put it on the right-wing media. Put it on politicians. But Rhodes, don't put it on my client. He was just a participant. He didn't create it at all. There were 450 people who've been sentenced here, Judge. 17 people Only 17 have gotten more than 60 months. Peter Schwartz, he got 170 months. But why, Your Honor? Why did he get such a high sentence? He had 38 priors, and he assaulted police officers. And priors are aggravating. If you have a blank slate, that looks very good. If you've got 38 priors, it doesn't look good. Tom Webster, judge, got 120 months. And he assaulted police. And Guy Reffitt, he got 87 months. Now, the assaultive person is the dangerous person, not the person who runs at the mouth and riles people up, judge. So if you give Rhodes 25 years, does it box the court into giving the cooperators 15 years? The U.S. Attorney Nestler, he says that Patrick McConaughey and Webster and Albuquerque Head, they were convicted of violent assaults, but he says none of those were conspiracy. And all the previous seditious conspiracy cases involved people plotting to kill Americans. Okay? Plotting to kill Americans is when these cases have been previously brought. Rahman, Khan, Al-Tamimi, Battle, Ford, Batiste. That's what these charges were appropriate for, not for a 4-hour riot in the Capitol building. Rhodes didn't plot to kill Americans, judge. Rhodes has no criminal history. And so, Your Honor, with all of that, I'd ask for a sentence of less than 60 months. Sentences of more than 60 months have been reserved only for those who have engaged in assaults. And I'd ask that people not sentence Rhodes out of fear, but for how his actions fit into everything that happened that day. He says, Your Honor, my client would like to say some words on his own behalf. Stewart Rhodes stands up. He says, Your Honor, I'm going to start today by saying I am a political prisoner. Like President Trump, my only crime is opposing those who are destroying our country, using protected speech because of systemic violence of the left to shut down the speech of Trump supporters. This started at the Trump inauguration. We started protecting vulnerable Trump supporters from attack by Antifa. None of them was ever prosecuted, to my mind. Obviously, seditious conspiracy is trying to stop the transfer of power to Trump. We've protected people outside Trump rallies from Antifa. Antifa likes to have unarmed victims, and he's giving several examples of those. We stepped up across the country to protect the unarmed or the elderly back to their vehicles. Shouldn't have to do that in this country, but we do. And he says there's more examples. There's one in Berkeley. There's one of a transgender Trump supporter who is being attacked. We stepped in. We did so peacefully, and we deterred Antifa. That's been our focal point. Unlike the characterization of the Southern Poverty Law Center, our people are nonviolent, Your Honor. We have zero record of actual use of force, and we deter other groups, unlike the Proud Boys, who seek out street violence. Your Honor, in D.C., we did many security operations without incident, without a hitch. You give our people the option to wear helmets and body armor because Antifa stabs people. That's why we do it. Because they throw bottles and other things at us. But on January 6th, I did not go inside, nor did I expect anyone else to. I'd just spoken at Latinos for Trump at a rally about a block north. When I was standing at the northeast corner of the Capitol, that's where the next event was going to be. It was going to be for Ali Alexander. Kelly Meggs and her team was escorting people from the Ellipse to Ali Alexander's event. And my concern was that they would get caught up in the turmoil outside the Capitol. So I wanted to make sure that they didn't get caught up. That's why I said, if anyone is still not on duty, come to us. When they did come to me, they said they'd gone inside, and I said that was stupid. Mr. Green was actually in charge of assigning the teams that day. Rhodes continues, he says, I never take personal leadership unless I have no choice. Green is retired police officer. I try to put good men in charge and trust them to do the right thing. On J6, I saw a problem. I saw a riot was happening, and I didn't want our guys to be a part of it. So I said, come to me. I wanted them to be with Mr. Green and me to keep our guys from being caught up in that. Josh James was with the other team protecting Roger Stone, and I didn't want them to be caught up in this. No Oath Keeper took part in any of the fighting. No Oath Keeper punched anyone or kicked anyone or pepper sprayed them, struck them with the stun gun, nothing. The worst thing an Oath Keeper did that day, Your Honor, Jessica Watkins pushed in the Senate hallway. She was leading her own little militia, not with us. And another one was Josh James. He lost his military bearing, and none of us caused that. I feel sorry for the police who testified yesterday, but none of us did that. It's bizarre to hear all of that. I find it offensive, frankly. This has been a surreal experience, says Stewart Rhodes. I can't even imagine. I feel like I'm the lead character in Kafka's The Trial. And says, Your Honor, I can't even believe that we're being called white supremacists here. I find that very offensive. It's all meant to smear the Trump supporters and to link them to the KKK, which was a Democrat organization, by the way. Rhodes says the Oath Keepers, the New York Times blames the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. They hate us because we stop the violence in the street, and they don't like that. The judge cuts him off. Hey, Stewart, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. Don't want to hear you anymore. Nice, Judge. Very nice. The man you're about to throw away for 18 years, you don't even let him finish speaking. These people are just unbelievable. Can you let him finish? Rhodes says, yeah, I'll get to it. After I said we need regime change, Your Honor, I said I hope Trump won in 2024. Rakosi took that out of context. Every J6er is a political prisoner, says Stewart Rhodes. All of them are being grossly overcharged. But this is not going to deter people, Your Honor. It's going to make people even more angry with the government. Rhodes is now talking about Texas versus Pennsylvania, the original suit in the Supreme Court. Says there's going to be constitutional problems and says, Your Honor, I cannot ignore the text of Constitution under my oath. Characterizing Trump supporters as racist or fools is not going to help. He says, Your Honor, I am the American Solzhenitsyn to expose the criminality of this administration. And he sits back down, finished. The judge says, we're going to take a short break while I go and figure out how I'm going to eviscerate this man. Judge Maida comes back after a break. All right, well, I've been thinking through the sentencing guidelines, looking through them and so everything. So the guidelines tell me that I have a range of between 262 to 327 months. And he says, well, I'm going to begin with the disparities. The defense has rightly brought forward a compilation of other sentences. The most serious was 14 years. The next serious was 10. And both did involve serious insultive conduct. But those aren't useful comparators because this case involves conspiracy and it's seditious conspiracy. And he says, so I've considered two things. Seditious conspiracy sentences in other case, if you, as pointed out, have involved the actual targeting and killing of Americans. But Mr. Rhodes, you were convicted of seditious conspiracy, says you, sir, are a lawyer, and you understand what that means. But for those who are not, it's true neither Rhodes nor conspirators used a weapon against a police officer that day. But the Supreme Court has said a collective agreement presents a greater danger to the public than individual criminal conduct. And so your conspiracy is even worse than assaulting an officer. And the danger of a conspiracy and a seditious conspiracy can create a civil war and treason. And so seditious conspiracy is among the most serious of all crimes that an American can commit. Rhodes is like, the hell are you talking about? I wasn't even there. Offense against the people of the country. It's not confined to that one day, Stewart. not actions of one day. It's a series of acts in which you and others committed the use of force, including potentially with weapons, as it transitioned from one president to another. So the potentiality. You didn't like the new guy. I get it. Let me be clear. We don't paint with a broad brush. Shame on you if you do. Just because you support the former president doesn't mean you're a white supremacist. You voted for the other guy, but you absolutely cannot have, screams this judge, a group of citizens who, because they didn't like the outcome and because they didn't think the law was carried out the way you think it should be, who are prepared to take up arms to foment a revolution. And that's what you did, Stewart. He's like, I didn't take up any arms. He says, those are your words, not mine. You're not a political prisoner. You're here because 12 jurors in D.C. who acquitted you of multiple counts found you guilty of sedition. It's a jury of your peers, he says. Right. Make no mistake. There are enduring impacts of January 6th. Now we all hold our breaths, says this hysterical judge, as an election approaches. He says, and there's another thing I have to talk about here. The heroism of the police officers who work to protect this democracy as we know it. They laid their bodies on the line. You talk about keeping oaths, Mr. Rhodes? Nobody more emblematic than those officers. Their heroism, their stamina, and their courage on one of the blackest days of our history. And he says, Mr. Rhodes, I've been giving this a lot of consideration. You're now 58 years old. You've got a wife. You've got 6 kids. You're an accomplished man. You served your country. You went to the University of Las Vegas, summa cum laude. Yale Law School. You clerked for the Arizona Supreme Court. You founded the Oath Keepers. He says, oh, I don't consider it white supremacist or racist. They've been civic-minded in some instances. But that's not in dispute. It's not my job to pass judgment on the Oath Keepers, Stewart, but to pass judgment on you. Many of these positive attributes of your organization have been turned against the government. And you've been involved in standoffs with the government, and I was chilled by your remarks. So this is a pattern. And you, sir, represent an ongoing threat to this country, and you're a compelling figure. And that's what makes you dangerous, Stewart. Everybody became because of you, only because of you. Everyone you conspired with was called to D.C. They're all victims of your lies and propaganda. That was not a good day for our democracy, but you celebrated it. And you said you regret not bringing weapons. And you are still denying the prior election. And so the judge is going on even longer than he gave him time to speak, it sounds like, because the judge wants the mic. When you find yourself in a bad place, Mr. Rhodes, the rest of us are too. We're all objects of your willingness to engage in violence, and we cannot have that in our country. And therefore, I find an appropriate sentence is to have you committed to the custody of the Bureau of Prisons for 216 months on counts 1, 3, and 7. 18 years. Mr. Rhodes, good luck to you. Adjourned. That's it. One of the more disgusting things we've ever seen on this channel happened today out of Washington, D.C., the D.C. Circuit Court. Stewart Rhodes is being prosecuted because of his political positions, more so than anything he actually did. Prosecuted for a fake narrative that they created that was never actually remotely even close to happening. This concept of an insurrection or sedition is all nonsense. But they needed it so that they could continue to go and castigate their political opponents for years to come. And they're doing it. And this is the first of a lot more to come. This is the first one of many. The Proud Boys are coming up next, and this is going to be an anchor on a spectrum by which all of the other seditious conspiracy cases are measured. So now the other seditious conspiracy cases that have been previously brought, as we learned, by people who were plotting to kill Americans, that standard, that threshold is now dropped a little bit. For whatever Stewart Rhodes did, wrote some pamphlets and had conversations and said some things that I don't endorse or encourage, but it's not seditious conspiracy. And this is a man who has no prior criminality, who's a lawyer, who's married, who served this country, who has done a lot of amazing things. But he is a useful enemy of the state. And so they're going to make him an enemy of the state, and there will be many more to come. And the judges here and the prosecutors here and the bloodlust that they all have as they just work themselves through these cases one after another and sentence somebody who basically did nothing to 18 years is reminiscent of other totalitarian states. And it's a disgusting thing. And if this happened in Russia, we would all be saying, how dare they do that to somebody like Navalny or whatever the Russians accuse Navalny of doing to interfere with the operation of the state. Stewart Rhodes is being crucified in front of America for good reason. They want to dissuade anybody from joining in the challenge against the government, and they want to make it hurt. And so this is as useful to them as a propaganda tool as anything. But can I just say, Stewart Rhodes did not bend the knee at all. Not even a little bit. The first words out of his mouth, I am a political prisoner, and this is a political prosecution, and he's dead right about it. And so there will be appeals, I'm sure of it, and there will be consequences for this type of behavior for the Justice Department. They are wrecking their legitimacy, and they are diminishing the power of the Justice Department by prosecuting these garbage cases. People are not going to trust them anymore, and their institution is going to fail even faster as a result. So that is the trial thread. Now, there was a lot of reaction here. Thomas Massey posted this. He said, Stewart Rhodes never even entered the Capitol, didn't commit acts of violence or destruction, yet he's going to be sentenced on Thursday for seditious conspiracy, obstructing an official proceeding, and tampering with documents, deleting stuff on his phone. Asks the weaponization of speech. Yeah. Hopefully Congress does something about it. Peter Strzok, you remember him, the lying FBI agent, says Stewart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers, has been sentenced to 18 years for his leadership of the most violent insurrection in the U.S. since the Civil War. He's changing his language a little bit. Trump has repeatedly said that he will pardon most insurrectionists and has refused to rule out pardoning Rhodes. I think Rhodes should be pardoned. This one came in from Darren Beatty, great follow, at Darren G. Beatty. Says Rhodes is allegedly such a danger to the country that it took the feds didn't bother to arrest him until over a year after January 6th. They didn't even search him other than one search of his phone. Bizarre story, doesn't add up from Darren. Yeah, and Ray Epps is roaming free. Julie Kelly says not a single Oath Keeper brought a weapon to the Capitol on January 6th. Says Judge Maida's a complete lunatic, but he upped his chances of being promoted to the appellate court. And this one came in from Cernovich. Says Stewart Rhodes, who committed no violence, and it's not even clear what his crimes were, sentenced to 18 years in prison. Says Stalin's gulags were usually 5 to 10 year bids. The communist takeover of the DC court system is now complete. And so I think that's all exactly accurate. And Stewart Rhodes will appeal, and there will be more consequences to this, hopefully, when the Republicans take over the presidency and the rest of Congress. But for the time being, Stewart Rhodes has been crucified right in front of America by the Biden administration, the DOJ, the Democrats who want to weaponize all levers of control in this country for their own ends. The future of America be damned. Of course, we'll continue to cover this. All right. And so, my friends, Speaking of corrupt FBI and a corrupt DOJ, let's talk about these people. We have Congress now threatening the FBI with contempt. We really want to see that document, the FD 1023, that evidently has information about the Biden crime family that the FBI has been sitting on for a long time. We've read through previously different letters back and forth. James Comer on the Oversight Committee sent one to the FBI and he said, I want the document. Here's a subpoena. Give it to me. The FBI responded and said, we're not going to give it to you because we're the FBI and we do whatever the heck we want. And Comer then said, in this letter, which we're about to read, you better comply or else you're going to be held in contempt of Congress. Apparently that got the ball rolling a little bit. Sounds like they may be meeting soon. Christopher Wray and James Comer, here's the conversation.
The very latest, he is the House Oversight Committee Chairman. James Comer is back with us. Sir, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. So you and your committee are prepared now to hold Director Wray in contempt, but now we're hearing that you will be meeting with Director Wray. At issue is this 1023 form. Specifically,
right. I sent Director Wray the letter threatening contempt of Congress proceedings if he didn't hand over the document at 3 o'clock. Just a few hours prior to coming on your show, Sean, I received word that the FBI director is committed to meet with me next week in Washington, and we can discuss this. But nothing's going to change with respect to holding him in contempt of Congress if he doesn't turn over the document. Not only do I expect the document, Sean, I expect to know exactly what the FBI did to investigate the validity of the claim. Because as I've said on your show before, this claim is consistent with activity that we have seen in other countries around the world, and it all stemmed over the course of 2015 and 2016 during the end of the Obama administration when Joe Biden was vice president, and he took it upon himself to travel all over the world to some of our adversaries around the world and talk about foreign policy and foreign aid.
So, but a 1023 is a confidential informant. B, in second degree.
That would be fair, but it's not classified. So their argument that says they don't want to out their informant, I agree with that 100%. There's a process in Washington to prevent that, and that's called redacting the name of the informant. That solves that. If the informant's claim isn't legitimate, then again, why are they worried about the informant? Look, we learned something during the second conversation we had with people representing the FBI when they came in to talk to my staff. Our specific request, first of all, said we want any Form 1023 dated in August 2020 with the word Biden on it. And you know what they came back and said, Sean? They said, well, that would just be too many documents. We can't possibly prepare all that. So, a light bulb goes off. What do you mean? How many 1023s are there with the word Biden just for 1 month in 2020? Now, this is what we found with the Treasury with the suspicious activity reports. There were hundreds of these indicating potential wrongdoing of the Bidens with respect to financial transactions. Now, the way that I understood the FBI, there are multiple Form 1023s pertaining to Biden. So we had to narrow the focus to say, okay, Biden and the word $5 million. All
right.
So
let me ask you this.
Document.
Woo! All right. So they are wanting to get the document, and that's going to be very curious to know how many of them there are, because we thought that there was just one of them. But apparently there are more to come. And so this is the letter from James Comer over from the House of Representatives, the Oversight Committee. He sends it to the Honorable Christopher Wray. He says, Dear Director Wray, on May 5th, our committee sent a letter to you people at the FBI regarding legally protected and highly credible unclassified whistleblower disclosures. We read that letter. As previously stated, Wray, the whistleblower disclosures indicated that the FBI and the DOJ are in possession of an FD 1023 form. a very important form describing an alleged criminal scheme involving the then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. A little quid pro Joe. That same day, the committee also issued a subpoena requiring the production of the documents. And so it wasn't just a letter, it was an actual subpoena from Congress. It said, can you please give us the documents with Biden and 1023 or else? The subpoena return date was May 10th. You didn't comply. On May 15th, committee counsel attended an in-person meeting at the FBI headquarters. And during that meeting, the FBI staff failed to produce the form or offer any reasonable accommodation that would allow the committee to even review the document. Instead, the FBI requested a second briefing. I expressed disappointment with the substance of that meeting in a May 19th letter that I sent to you, which we also read here. On May 16th, Comer says, Senator Grassley and I, through our staff, requested a phone call with you, Director Wray, to discuss the form. Despite repeated requests, the FBI has failed to schedule a phone call. Senator Grassley and I remain open to speaking with you about the form. FBI is snubbing them. On May 22nd, FBI and Staff Committee Counsel met for a second time. And at that meeting, FBI staff provided, again, general information about the program. Another PowerPoint slide deck. No answers. Similar to this first meeting, the FBI staff was not authorized to even acknowledge the existence of the form. So it's like, hey, Congress, why do you keep meeting with them? They're jerking you around. There was only one substantive comment regarding the subpoena. And despite the committee's subpoena being narrowly tailored to June 2020, the FBI staff that you sent over indicated that the search terms were broad because there were many responsive documents containing the term Biden in the database for that month. It's so many in 1 month, they can't get you enough. While that new information was alarming, you mean, wait a minute. So we're asking for 1 month out of 1 year, and there's so many documents that you can't even pick it out. You're saying it's overbroad for 1 month? Committee counsel offered to limit the subpoena to be even more precise. Okay, well, what date would you like? FBI staff responded that a limitation was unnecessary because they knew which document was responsive, yet they simultaneously would not acknowledge the document's existence. This is your FBI. They're supposed to be working to help root out criminality and bad actions. And apparently there's a confidential human source who says the president and his family did a lot of bad things. These FBI people are jerking Congress around to protect the Biden administration. That's how disgusting this is. They say, okay, well, we need all the documents from June 2020. Well, we can't give you all the documents from June 2020. Well, why not? Well, there's too many of them. Your request is too broad. We don't know which one you want. Okay, well, how about this? We want the one from June 1st. Can you give us that one? Okay, well, we're also going to ask for June 2nd. And if you don't give us that one, we'll send another request for June 3rd. How's that? And so they start going through the list, and the FBI agents are like, okay, stop it. I see what you're doing. You're not going to count to 30, okay? Just shut up. I know which document and which day you're talking about, okay? Just leave us alone. And they say, oh, so you do know which document we want. So the FBI's gamesmanship in holding a meeting about the confidentiality issues is just a stupid joke. They say it's unacceptable. Comer writes, all right, Ray, the committee is not seeking the identity of the source who provided the information. So just get that out of your head. And there are reasonable accommodations that would alleviate your concerns about exposing the information. You could redact this, you know. Instead of working with the committee, the FBI is refusing to even acknowledge whether the form exists at all. Agency has not made any attempts to engage in reasonable accommodations. And so therefore, Congress says, hey, Director, the FBI's refusal to produce a single document is obstructionist. Nevertheless, to narrow the breadth of the subpoena, we are providing some additional terms for you based on unclassified and legally protected whistleblower disclosures that may be referenced. We want specifically any documents that have these phrases in it. June 30th, 2020, and the phrase 5 million. You think you smooth brains at the FBI can find that one for us? These terms relate to the date on the form and its reference to the amount of money that the foreign national allegedly paid to receive the desired policy outcome. Pay the 5 to Joe, he'll get it done for you. Given the large number of FD 1023 forms that use the word Biden, these terms should help the FBI identify it. So search for Biden, search for June 2020 on the 30th, and search for 5 million. You think you people can find it now? Despite the FBI's unreasonable delay, the committee will allow the FBI 6 more days to produce the form. To the extent there are numerous documents referencing Biden and $5 million, please let us know. If there are like another 1,000 of those, we'd like to see them all. Yeah. If June 30th is too complicated for you guys for these 2 terms, let us know. That'd be very interesting. Comer says, as explained in both previous letters, the committee's independent and objective review of this matter will inform legislative solutions. We're considering passing rules that fix these problems, that stop presidents from trading American secrets and being corrupt. Your response to this subpoena is due May 30th. Now, this is where the big guns come out. Dear Christopher Wray, if FD 1023 form is not produced by May 30th, 2023, the committee will initiate Contempt of Congress proceedings. If you have any questions about that, give us a call. We have broad authority. We are Congress. Thank you for your prompt attention to this important investigation. Sincerely, your friend, James Comer. So that is interesting now. We have a date and we have a secondary cause of action. Christopher Wray, you're going to be held in contempt. And James Comer said that letter got a phone call. So they are meeting and we'll see if they get the form. But it's not that complicated. Why don't we just get it? Jim Jordan is explaining this as well.
Congressman, it's good to see you. Prove. Let us have the document. The document. Senator Grassley has a whistleblower that he deems credible who came to him and said this document exists. Let us have the document. And if you don't, Chairman Comer's indicated we'll do whatever we can to pressure them to give us that information. I'm so tired of the unelected folks thinking they run the government versus those people who are actually accountable to the American citizen, to we the people, to the voters. That's not how it's supposed to work in our constitutional system. So give us the darn information. Well,
not complicated. It's a pretty simple process and a pretty simple document. And so Christopher Wray is now going to be meeting with James Comer, and we'll see what the results of that are. We're very excited to see FD 1023, and we're very curious as to what policy that $5 million bought for whoever that person was and what Joe Biden delivered. And so we are still talking about the FBI, and we have another question for them, including this one. Where is that pipe bomber, the one who is going to blow up the RNC and the DNC if the FBI's other plan to create an insurrection didn't go forward? We have a lot of questions about this person, and so does Congress. In fact, they sent a letter over to the FBI demanding to know more about their inquiry and about what they have been able to unpack about this person. But we have some other details. Certainly looks like the FBI knows more than they're letting on. The Federalist reports for us that the FBI knows what car was used in the DNC pipe bomb, but they're not going to identify the prime suspect. I wonder why that is. I wonder why they won't identify him. I'm curious. Here you see, they write for us, the FBI is continuing to stonewall congressional oversight of the FBI's investigation into a pair of pipe bombs found at the DNC and the RNC on January 6. On Wednesday, Republicans re-upped demands for a comprehensive briefing on this. We're going to read through the letter here in a minute. Earlier this month, FBI whistleblower told the Washington Times that the FBI identified the vehicle that the suspect entered shortly after planting the bombs. And if you watch the bombs and pull up the footage, the FBI released some surveillance video, but it's extremely choppy. It's like 1 frame per second. You can't see anything. The FBI had surveillance video that showed the person entering a car with a visible license plate after exiting the metro stop. FBI whistleblower, somebody who used to work for them, named Kyle Seraphin, who does great work and is a great follow on Twitter. He worked on the case. He told the paper that the agency tied whoever the person was that dropped the bombs with surveillance cameras all the way through the train and to getting into the car with the license plate. So they followed him out of the area. And if you've been to DC, you can just drop right down into the subway, into the metro, and they followed him all over the place, apparently. The 2 bombs were inoperable. Now lawmakers are seeking answers over the investigation. Julie Kelly, amazing work, who writes for American Greatness, wrote in February last year, the pipe bomb incident possesses the markings of another FBI hoax. She said, as the FBI successfully rounded up hundreds of Capitol trespassers using sophisticated tools like geofence warrants, the trail of the pipe bomber went cold. Weird. Maybe we'll see him on 60 Minutes next to Ray Epps soon. So let's take a look at the actual letter that went out. Sent May 24th, 2023 from Congress of the United States. This one drafted by Jim Jordan, Chairman, Committee of the Judiciary. Also Andy Biggs and Bill Posey, members of Congress. They say, Dear Christopher Wray, the Committee on the Judiciary is conducting oversight of the programs and operations of the FBI. And as part of our oversight obligations, we wrote to you previously in March. We wanted a briefing about the status of the FBI's investigation into pipe bombs placed near the headquarters of the DNC and the RNC on January 5th. At the start of this Congress, we reiterated this request, and to date, you have failed to comply. The committee requested the briefing after we received a whistleblower disclosure from a senior FBI official that raised concerns about the, quote, unusual nature of the FBI's investigative efforts and due to the FBI's failure to adequately respond to Bill Posey, another representative, request for a briefing. Specifically, the whistleblower disclosure revealed that the Washington field office asked FBI field office to canvass all CHSs nationwide for information about the individual and the crime over a year after the placement of the bombs, and requested that the canvass, quote, include sources reporting on all types of threats because the suspect's motive and ideology remains unknown. So the FBI puts out a message, a big group message to all of their CHSs, all of their handlers, all of the FBI agents handling the CHSs. Can you get your informants to go find out who this person is? They send that out. They don't know who it is. Now, your failure, writes Jim Jordan, to the FBI, your failure to request and comply with our request is concerning, given the recent media reports about the pipe bomb investigation. According to at least one report from a former FBI agent who worked on this, the FBI linked the suspected pipe bomber to a Metro Rail smart trip card that the subject used to travel through the metro system to stop in North Virginia. The FBI then used security camera footage from Northern Virginia and the metro stop to identify the license plate of a car that the individual entered. But still, the FBI has not identified the subject. Why not? One former FBI assistant director observed, it just doesn't add up. There's just too much work to not know who this guy is. Why don't they know who he is? They've got pretty good photos of him. Locals dragged this one out for us. Pretty clear. Some nice details. Very curious what's going on there. Why can't they find this fella? The slow progression of the FBI's investigation into the J6 bombs raises significant concerns about the prioritization of that case in relation to other investigations. They'd rather go and prosecute grandmas and raid their homes, the ones who were just roaming around, looking around the Capitol. Pipe bombers like, man, we'll get to them. Accordingly, we reiterate our outstanding request for a briefing on the status of this pipe bomber no later than June 7th. We're authorized, because we're Congress, to investigate these things. If you have any questions about this matter, please call us, your friends in Congress, Jim Jordan and others. And so, as we see, the FBI wants to stonewall Congress even on updates about their own investigations related to a bomber. The question is why? They started digging into it and they're like, it's Lou, isn't it? From the 3rd floor. I think he works in insurrections. I think you know him. He was at the bowling event that night. Kind of weird. It is Lou. I think he was also working with Ray Epps, wasn't he? All right. What are we going to do? Well, just don't respond. Just don't respond to the letter. If they're Congress, what are they going to do? They'll send another one. Just ignore it. Like photo radar tickets. So you just ignore it. Yeah, so that's what's happening in Congress, and we'll see if they respond and if we get any other details. And when we do, it'll be very curious to see what FBI agent that was who tried to cause an insurrection. So, speaking of our big, gigantic, bureaucratic nanny state, we now learn more. The Department of Homeland Security calling Christians Nazis and saying that if you even watch Fox News, or if you're a Republican, or you read Breitbart, you might be one step away from being a member of the Third Reich. You can see this is the pyramid of the far-right radicalization. This came from a report from MRC Media Research Center, which we are going to take a look at. It involves various government funds being used to support university efforts to go after their political opponents. And this has been a big theme in this administration for a long time. In fact, here's Joe Biden mumbling out a phrase saying that they've done a lot to fight misinformation. Over 100 things, in fact.
Building cross-community solidarity and collective action to fight hate. This strategy includes over 100 bold and unprecedented actions that government agencies are going to take to counter anti-Semitism. And that includes calls for action for Congress, state and local governments, companies, technology platforms, civil society, and faith leaders, all of them to act. Silence is complicity. All of us must stand united to affirm that an attack on any one group of us is an attack on all of us.
Unless you're a MAGA extremist, then you can attack them. You can give a full speech in front of the gates of hell and scream about MAGA insurrectionists and the extremist MAGA wing and all the Republicans and how they're all racist white supremacists and all of the things. But did you hear how he said, if you are silent, you are complicit? Silence is no longer acceptable. You have to speak out. If you're not involved in politics, you just want to live your normal life and just do your job and raise your family and live normal life without being involved in all of this garbage, you're part of the problem. You've got to speak up. If you're not actively joining us in identifying the people who read Breitbart and the people who watch that network and other things, then you are part of the problem.
And that includes calls for action for Congress, state and local governments, companies, technology platforms, civil society, and faith leaders, all of them to act. Silence is complicity. All of us must stand united to affirm that an attack on any one group of us is an attack on all of us.
He's barely alive and just on this side of death. So he and his administration are launching all sorts of efforts to wage that war. In fact, here is a summary of what we're about to read. This report says university program links Christian Republicans to Nazis. They got a bunch of DHS funds under an anti-terror initiative. More details on this. Lots of taxpayer money going out through anti-terrorism grants to a university program that has explicitly lumped the Republican Party as well as Christians and other conservative groups into the same category as Nazis. The Media Research Center created a report, which we're going to read through. Got all of their information through a Freedom of Information Act request. showing that a Department of Homeland Security program that was meant and created to fight terrorism is funding a group whose work has explicitly targeted people on the American political right. You see a chart that we'll take a closer look at. The group is called the TVTP, DHS's Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program. It provides funds to various public and private nonprofit institutions and gives a bunch of that government money to universities and county governments. Why? To, quote, establish or enhance capabilities to prevent targeted violence and terrorism. Grant applications are based on applications. The Biden administration has awarded 80 grants through the program, $40 million bucks. Lowest grant was 85 grand, highest was over 1.1 million. This was started under the Obama administration, was broadened and revamped by the Biden people. And let's take a look at the report itself to see what it has inside. This was drafted and created by MRC, which publishes great content on Twitter. You can follow them. Just search for MRC or Media Research Center. And here is their expose. This was written by Louis Cornelio and Tim Kilcullen. Shout out to both of them. They say that under the Trump administration, the TVTP was used to prevent terrorism, but now under Biden, it has been expanded, and it's going to be combating targeted violence and all forms of terrorism. But they're focusing not on actual violence and actual terrorism. They're focusing on the political right and Christians. The University of Dayton is one of several grantees targeted. They targeted groups like the following: the Heritage Foundation, Fox News, Christian Broadcasting Network, Turning Point USA. And you can see how they're detailed out on this chart. The memo awarded 80 different grants totaling $40 million. And we're asking about where this money went. Here's where one example takes us. The University of Dayton was among the most radical grantees within this initiative. In Ohio, the Department of Homeland Security awarded the university $350 grand to establish a Prevents OH program. And this is a program to fight domestic violent extremism and hate movements. What? That's a lot of money. They used a chart that was created by DHS and its grantee in a training program that equates mainstream groups with militant neo-Nazis. Heritage, Fox, NRA, Breitbart, PragerU, Turning Point, CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, American Conservative Union, and others. The seminar that was conducted compared Donald Trump to Pol Pot and suggested Florida Governor Ron DeSantis might want to start a second Holocaust. That seems grounded and reasonable. Nice people at this university. The Prevents Ohio seminars, including one that was led by a DHS agent, the government is speaking at these things, features lectures by somebody called Michael, and he's a member of Antifa. That's great. And his Twitter feed is rife with posts celebrating acts of left-wing violence, often against police officers. So that's the type of people they're promoting. He got up there and he explained how to create dummy accounts on free speech platforms like Telegram, Gab, and Rumble in order to destabilize political movements. You see this? So the government is funding to the tune of $350,000 to create these little communist meetups funded by stealing taxpayer dollars, where they can all get together and talk about interfering with like the work that we're doing here. Dummy accounts, we're on Telegram, we're on Rumble, we're about to be on Gab. And a lot of things we're doing are illegal. A lot of it involves breaking the law, but they do it anyways. Government paying to teach them how to do this. Now, the Biden administration spent nearly $40 million in taxpayer dollars to help emphasize media literacy and online critical thinking initiatives. 80 grants, $39 million went out. So far, well, you see here the program. Seeing if they have another good example for us. Here are some other documents. Apparently there was a conversation, there was a presentation. When he was giving this presentation to the university, he says, a lot of the things we're doing are illegal. A lot of it involves breaking the law. I wonder if the FBI is going to raid him. But he claims this was necessary. He says hate speech is more than speech. It's materiality. It's organizing. It's mobilization. It's not an exchange of ideas. It's something else. It's deployment of energy and power. So he says censorship efforts are not enough to fight against the fascists. He wants a more aggressive approach. He wants to deny people that. He wants to shut down their websites. He wants to close their meetings and physically prevent them from assembling in public. Here's what he said. He said, first, you have to identify your targets. This is the government at a lecture with Paul Becker and Lodenthal and others, training their little communists how to identify targets, create dossiers, surveil, interfere, misdirect, and disrupt. They're talking about this in college universities, and the government is paying for it. So here you have passive observation, first strategy. Remain silent and aware. Then you join and listen. Join our Telegram, our Facebook, our Discords. Then you archive and map, okay? Save, combine, and produce intelligence. So start scraping the chats. Take a look and identify your targets. And then create dossiers and release information. And then infiltrate and misdirect and disrupt. That's what these little communists are doing out here. Another member, an extremism speaker, compared Trump to the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot's brutal regime that killed 1.7 million people. This speaker, Alexander Hinton, speaking around college campuses. Another speaker, Nicole Wittersheim, made a wild accusation that Ron DeSantis might try to conduct a second Holocaust in 2021 and even wants a civilian military force. So all in all, they are spending millions of dollars to silence conservatives and to train the next level generation to go out and conduct their little communist activities. In conclusion, they say the Biden administration has a clear pattern of using tax dollars to attack its opponents. Parents are terrorists. They funded the global disinformation index censorship machine, and now they've got this program. $40 million training little communists, targeting conservatives, targeting Christians and the Republican Party, joining in on your chats. And so be vigilant out there, my friends. They are trying to infest our free association and interfere, but they will not win. And so, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground today. We have some updates. Apparently, the DHS is going after everybody now. So if you're watching Fox News, if you're a Republican, you are now level 1 terrorist. We also saw that Congress is getting close to being holding the FBI in contempt. They want information on the pipe bombers. They want an FD 1023 form, and they want it now. And we also went through Stewart Rhodes and his horrendous 18-year sentence. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this. We'll check in on Rumble. We'll check in on Locals. Let's say hello to our friends on YouTube. We'll say hi to Twitter. And start the day off with our friend Stephen Mosher. What's up, Stephen? He says, support the pyramid of conspiracy. You know, this is a great point, Stephen. I'm a little bit offended that Watching the Watchers is not on this list. We've got a lot more work to do to get Watching the Watchers on this list. You know, I mean, it's insulting that we're not on here. You know, I mean, we got demonetized here for 9 months. They called us dangerous and something after January 6th. They struck many of our videos. We should be on this list. We're going to have to continue to work hard. We're going to work a little harder here to get up there. So thank you, Stephen Mosher. I appreciate that. All right. Another one came in from our friend Spuds. Says, are there any Field of Greens at the top of the pyramid? No, not yet. Field of Greens is on the antioxidant pyramid, at the top of that pyramid. Good to see you, Spuds. Thanks for the dono. Hey, we got Dolphin Fan is the man here, who brought in 5 new members. Thank you very much. Dolphin Fan is the man. We got 5 new members. Welcome to Z3. Keister Bunny. Welcome to the Keister Bunny. Lactonic, Kimberly B, and Frosted Sheet all coming in. Frosted Sleet all coming in as new members, courtesy of our friend Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. And thank you, Dolphin. And hey, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to grab the Telegram link, which is where we're going to go here in a short minute for our after party, which is where we'll continue to talk about things that we talk about in the after party. Michael Allen Hughes says the pipe bomber is plan B in case Trump makes it onto the ticket unscathed. Someone will die with damaging ties to the Trump White House. You rock, Robert. So you rock, Michael Allen. Thank you for being here, man. And thank you for the support. Says, so are you saying that potentially, had there not been a breach at the Capitol, had they not basically left the doors wide open, maybe they would have done something else, dropped bombed something off, or this would have been a cover story or something else would have happened. It would have been a much bigger story if nothing else had happened on that day. But something did happen. And so that story, they can just forget about it. It's their plan B. Someone will die with damaging ties to Trump's White House. You rock, Robert. Well, I hope nobody dies. I hope not. But I think you're talking about a cover-up or something happening. Hopefully everything is nice and peaceful over there. Rocky Waters here says, thanks as always, Rob, for using the internet for the forces of good. Keep shining that beautiful spotlight. Well, thank you for being here and joining us, Rocky Water. Thanks for the amazing tip. And, we couldn't do these live streams if you weren't here joining us. And so thanks for being here and joining us, Rocky Water. And thanks for being a member over on Locals. We also have, what's up to John McGarvey? Clip this one. This came in from Rocky Water. Says, seditious conspiracy is one of the few remaining roads to keeping Trump off the 2024 ballot. This is a great point from Rocky Water. There's argument that if you're convicted of insurrecting America, that you're precluded from holding office in America. That's under the 14th Amendment. I believe it's the insurrection clause. So ultimately, you could follow the bouncing ball into that, right? They don't necessarily need to put Trump in prison. If they convict him of seditious conspiracy, then they could make the argument that he's not allowed to run. He is precluded from the ballot because of the insurrection clause. And I think that's why they wanted the Proud Boys to get convicted. And the Proud Boys pointed to Trump, and the Oath Keepers pointed to Trump. And so they're just going to say, well, Trump led the seditious conspiracy. He led an insurrection, and therefore he is not allowed, he's not qualified to run. Now, the mechanics of how that work, I don't know. There would be a lot of legal challenges to that. But it is a pathway to actually sidelining him. If you don't want to say that the prosecutions will hurt him and damage him politically, like there's 3 options. One, all of these prosecutions just hurt Trump politically and they sideline him. And there's going to be a lot more coming. 2, they actually keep him in prison. Okay, so he's like actually in custody, which I don't think is, there's not a 0 chance of that. There is a non-zero chance that happens. And then the third would be he is convicted of something. It's like a pseudo prosecution. He's convicted, but he's not imprisoned per se. But as a part of either an agreement with Trump, he doesn't run, or he withdraws, or he is convicted, but the penalty is just the judge puts a note in there, a finding of insurrection, a finding of sedition, and then in various courts across the country, I think that what they would try to do is say that he's precluded under the 14th Amendment. There'd be a lot of litigation to keep him literally off the ballot because of the conviction. And then that would go up to the Supreme Court. We will have a constitutional crisis on our hand because that's what they're doing. It's literally, it's like we're in just phase 1, first inning. But if you game that out all the way to the end, I mean, and I think a lot about it, actually. I think that we might be on the first step of it. So great comment from Rocky Water. All right, here we saw this one come in. Says, when they finally came for me, there was nobody left to stand up. Was that from Rocky Water? I can't see who that came from, but it's a great comment. Yeah, and I think I've heard that, when they came for, I think it's like a World War II quote, right? Like when they came for the gypsies, nobody cared. When they came for the disabled, nobody cared. Nobody stood up. When they came for this, nobody stood up. When they came for the Jews, there was nobody left to stand up, or something like that. Or maybe it's not a World War II quote. I don't know. But I have heard that before. That came in from John McGarvey. Good comment from John McGarvey. Yeah. Thank you, John. Another one came in from Jonathan Jenkins. Says, oh, Lord. Yeah, John says, yep, over there. Jonathan Jenkins says, oh, Lord, he reminded me the judge of his party history. No wonder he got 18 years. Yeah. He has been extremely, extremely crucified out here today. Not good at all. Donald Thomas says, isn't it a shame that the judge spoke longer than Mr. Rhodes while having the audacity to shut him up? Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that too, Donald. It's pretty amazing that he cut him off, actually. It's really unbelievable. He can do that, of course. He's the judge, and he's allowed to do that. And, yeah, he's got time. But it's like, come on, man. Let him just say his piece. You're going to put him in prison for 18 years. Can he just finish? Like, are you that really petty? You're just going to shut him up, too, and then throw him away? You can't even let him speak? You're afraid of what he's going to say in your courtroom, that you just say shut up and just take your sentence? It's just pathetic, honestly. It's just not even manly, or womanly. I don't even know what it is. It's cowardly, in my opinion. I think it's gross. Just let him speak. Let him say whatever he wants. Give him 20 minutes. Give him 30 minutes. Keep going. You done? Good. All right. 18 years. But to say wrap it up and all the... Give me a break. It's just gross. All right. 1R5 over on Rumble says, who enforces contempt charges against the DOJ? I'm thinking nobody. Would this be tried in the DC circuit? Yeah, well, that's a great question. Yeah, so I don't really know what the enforcement modality would be. Yeah, I mean, technically Congress passes the law and they refer things over to the DOJ. So like what happened with Steve Bannon is this exactly. Congress said we want something. Bannon said no. They referred it to the DOJ. The DOJ brought the prosecution. Now, how this is going to work when you have, one government official versus another government official, and the DOJ is going to be backing the FBI to not release the document because the document's going to be damning to Biden, and Biden controls the DOJ. What happens? Again, we're going to run into some serious constitutional problems. Good question from 1R5. Hey, welcome to Cindy Banks in the house. Became a supporter. Awesome. It's good to see you, Cindy, which means you're going to get the member-only morning streams, which we're going to do tomorrow morning. So join us for that. And also grab the Telegram link because the live chats come to an end, but the Telegram chat goes on and on, my friend. John McGarvey's in the house. He says, sup. John McGarvey's just so chill. He's just chill till the bone, man. Doesn't even have a question. We're all, watching the world melt down around us. He's just saying, hello. What's up, John? Thanks for the tip. We had this one from Jason on Blast says, keep up the good fight. Truth is the most damaging weapon we can deploy on the left today. Hope you're well, man. Thank you, Jason on Blast. I couldn't agree with you more. You just keep talking, keep sharing the truth. They keep censoring. They keep putting people in these little lists like dork heads. And we just keep mocking them and laughing at them and exposing their insanity. And it is truth. And, truth is powerful. And I'm doing well, Jason. I hope you're doing well. And thank you for being here. And thanks for supporting our work here. We had another one from Dennis on the Rhodes sentence. Dennis says, OBL wasn't in New York City on September 11th, wasn't on a plane, but I do believe he was responsible for the events that day. Or was he? I don't know. It's a good question. We never had a trial on that one either, did we? So we don't know. Yeah, and I mean, gosh, I guess that would require us to trust our government on what they say happened that day. And I think you're talking about OBL, Osama bin Laden. He wasn't in New York. Definitely wasn't. Another one came in from Rocky Water. Thank you, Rocky. Says, oh, wait, that one was from, we're going to go over to Twitter in a minute. Thank you, V. V's clipping the Twitters. We'll hit the Twitters. This one came in from Rocky Water. Says, so Rhodes is the lure for the Trump pardon. Seems like they want to make Rhodes a clear must pardon for Trump should he win 2024. And once Trump does pardon someone convicted of seditious conspiracy, impeachment number 3. Yeah, I could see that too. I think that if Trump even starts talking about challenging the next election, or I think even talking about pardoning the J6ers, what the special counsel is doing is keeping a dossier. He's keeping a list of all the things Trump says. Everything that Trump says that is supportive of January 6th or is excusing January 6th or saying that nothing happened is going to be used to show that he is a current, clear, and present danger to American democracy. Just so we're understanding that. That's what he's going to say. And he's going to say that Trump should not be let out of custody and that there should be all sorts of limitations on him. And it's going to be a very, very strange conversation to have in the near future. So there's going to be a lot, right? There's a lot to game through. A Bad Poet is here. Says, I find the Constitution in relation to the powers of Congress difficult. It might be a good topic for you to go over. So just I think you're asking, what are the powers of Congress? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it would be a good topic to go over. We could spend a whole semester talking about constitutional law and the powers that Congress has, but it's a lot. Generally, when we talk about the 3 layers of government, the best way to think about it, that's been most useful for me, has been to think about the main role of each branch. Who does what? Congress, they make the laws. The people vote for the Congress people, they make the laws, and they decide what to do. What are the rules? How does it work? Once those rules are set, it goes over to the executive branch, which is the president. The president then executes those laws. Congress says this is the thing that you have to do now, and there's no enforcement mechanism for that. So the executive branch, they have the FBI, they have the Department of Justice. You don't comply with the regulations, they prosecute you. So the executive branch executes the law. When there's a conflict about that, or when there's a conflict about what the law is or what the law says, then it goes over to the Supreme Court, and they deal with the conflicts between the 2 branches. And so that's generally the rule. Now, Congress has given itself a ton of power, and they've also delegated away from themselves a ton of power. So in other words, they've given the executive branch some things that feel like their congressional duties. And Congress has also taken, well, not really. Congress has mostly given things up, but they've also taken over a ton of power, basically through things like the Commerce Clause and through judicial interpretation of what the Constitution says. Congress wants to control as much as they can, and the courts have allowed them to do a lot more than I think is appropriate. Danny McWilliams over on Twitter says, if Republicans don't win in 2024, the country's gone. We'll all be screwed. 18 months, we win or lose everything. And he says, Rob, you know you're on one of those lists too. I don't doubt it at all. I'm sure we are here. Says, tell Robert there is justice today. Deplorable Fred says that the government is disgusting. Johnny says that, actually. That's true. Viantika says, hooray. I'm an exclamation C. You're an exclamation C. It's an exclamation C, symbol G. And Omnipotent is finally out of Twitter jail. And Don't Be Hating says, why aren't they targeting Epps instead of Rhodes? The answer is obvious to everyone except the FBI. And yes, that is true. And so those, my friends, are the great comments. And thank you for sending in those amazing tips, and to our friends on Twitter. Let's say hello to Rumble. Who's over watching on Rumble? Hey, we are so close to hitting 40,000 on Rumble. If you're watching on Rumble and you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love a subscribe, a follow on Rumble. We're at 39.8 over there. And we've been there for a while. So if you're not already subscribed on Rumble, we'd love it if you did that. To get us over that 40, that would be cool. Who's over there? Anything is over there. Buffering. A job well done. Sedona rocks. Little Galaxies in the house. Jacob Castro. Crits says, sorry, but the management and the FBI are criminals. Yeah. Indoctrination says these pardons won't happen until the end of office anyways. That's a good point about that. Yeah, so even if Trump did pardon people, it would probably be at the end. Which means Stewart Rhodes, and with appeals and everything, he may be in custody for a while. Jan X over there. We see Sedona rocks in the house. Didn't Obama have over 800 pardons on his last day? I think a lot. They normally do. It's normally a ton of them. But okay, Rob. No, that was for me. Thanks as always, Rob. Okay, that came in from Rocky Water. Thank you, Rocky Water. Okay, my friends. Well, I think that is about it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party, where we are going to finish up and chat. If you're a member on YouTube, don't forget to grab the Telegram link. It's in the community section, and you can come and join us for a little bit more conversation, and we'd love to have you. The web address, if you want to join us, and also, if you want to join watchingthewatchers.locals.com, you get morning streams, you get Saturday streams. There's an amazing community. We'd love to have you. Also, don't forget to grab your Field of Greens over courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com, and you can save 15% with code Robert. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. They really do. They're good for you. They're nutritious. There's all sorts of good stuff in there. And save 15% off with code Robert. Also, we have spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap if you are looking for a place to get this Mindmap software. You can create a free account. I love this stuff. I use it for all sorts of different things. You can get yours, spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. Big shout out to our mods who mod down the fort for us. Big shout outs to Vientikis Prime, K-Bean, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janak in the house. We have Dog Digger and Donut Mind Me. Modding down the fort and clipping away, and I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And our friends on Twitter, Sleepy Dog Lee and Geegum Geegum, are amazing meme smiths. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it right there. We're going over to our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we had one final super chat that just came in. This one was from Just Me. Says Comer should put PS on his letter. No information, no budget money for the FBI, DOJ, HLS. You won't be fired, but you will work for free. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, the power of the purse would be a good tool for Congress to use if the FBI doesn't comply. And I really hope that they do something about it, because it really is a big problem. And if Congress just keeps talking and talking and talking, they're going to keep losing and losing and losing, because the FBI is actively working against them. So it would serve their own interest to do something about it. We'll see if they do. All right, my friends. That is it for us on the day. After party's coming up. I would love to see you there, but if not, we'll see you right back here tomorrow to do this all again, because it's going to be Friday, baby, and we're going to have a lot to get to. And I hope to see you here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.